Thank you so much for coming out. Who are my avid Amtrak travelers here? Once, twice, three. Few hands. Awesome. I have been an Amtrak traveler since I was 5. And I have to honestly admit to you, I eat, sleep, drink, and breathe the railroad. Who doesn't? My brother once joked about me. He said to me when we were at Newark Penn Station, we went to Washington back in just last month, and he says to me, "You live here. You stare at these things like as if they're calling you." We used to have a shore house in Point Pleasant down the shore, and we were just blocks away from the Bay Head train station, and on a very quiet day, you could hear the engines idling. And then when their horns would be blowing, my brother would say, "They're calling you." So that's how closely knit I am with the railroad.
Did you have a model train set at home?
Yes, did. I even have the LGB at home at Christmas. Okay, let's get started. I refer to this presentation as staying on track with America's railroad because Amtrak has come a long way in the past 25 years. It has become much more affordable. It has come up with every last reason why you should be traveling with them. With the airlines, what they're doing to us these days, with the luggage fees and all the other fees and all the inconveniences that come with it. Amtrak has made that more convenient as opposed to what the airlines are doing. So let's get started.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's go back a little bit. Well, this photo right here is Amtrak's brand new electric engine on the rails, the ACS 64 City Sprinter. It replaces the AM7 electric engine, which I will talk a little more later on. It packs 8,600 horsepower. You can pull long trains these days. So I'll talk a little more about that at the end. But what about me? I've been a lifelong railroad traveler, a lifelong model railroader since I was 18 months old. Been an Amtrak Guest Awards member since the year 2001. Not only am I a member of the program, since then have I also carried the credit card, which is a great thing to have. I'll share that later on in the presentation. Been a travel writer since August of 2011. Been a travel lecturer since February of 2015. I decided to do these lectures to bring my writing and my travel experience to life. And I'm also internationally published in Canada and England. I'm in a couple of lifestyle magazines published in both countries. And one of the best parts, April 2014, I was recognized by Amtrak in their national news clipping. It was an article I wrote on Examiner.com about Washington's Union Station, one of my favorite stations. It's a beautiful building. And I wrote the article on Examiner.com, and one of the conductors who I know via LinkedIn, he emails me and he says to me on email, "Hey David, is this you?" And I looked at the article that he attached and I was saying, "Yep, that's me." And then I'm saying, "You're being read all over the country, my friend." I'm like, great to hear. So I'm now nationally published there. This picture right here was taken on National Train Day, May of 2014. Long story, but it's a funny one. The ACS 64 electric engine, number 604, was on display, and guests were allowed to sit in the cab and take a tour of the cab. People were touring all the Amtrak coaches throughout Amtrak's fleet. Amfleet, 2 coaches for the long distance fleet. Even the double-decker coaches for the long-distance routes. So we had the chance to sit in the cabs of all the engines in their fleet. This picture, I had my photo taken by my dad, and while I was getting my picture taken, a child was sitting in the engineer's seat, and he pulled the horn trigger. I had no idea what happened, but the horn was so out, it reverberated off the rafters above us, and I just jumped. I flew 5 feet. And my dad's asking, did you touch something? No, I didn't. Somebody pulled the horn, I don't know who. But then I went to tour the cab just minutes later, and one of the Amtrak volunteers says to me, sir, do not touch the horn. I said, you sure about that? Yeah, I'm absolutely sure. I was like, are you sure about that? And I said, a child was just in the seat. He hit the horn, and I almost went 30 feet. So that was quite a day. It was a fun day. National Train Day is every May, run by Amtrak. It's the second week of May. And it's a nationwide celebration. So it's something definitely to check out. About Amtrak, in depth. Historically, it was founded by Congress in October 1971 to save the long-distance railroads from failure. They were struggling financially, and the trucks were taking over the freight. People were traveling on the highways more often because the passenger railroads were not even taking care of their trains at that time. So they were starting to run less and less. The service quality was running further and further down to the hole, and people were getting discouraged. So the railroads were all falling apart. And finally, by 1971, Congress put that to rest, and Amtrak was born. So now they have service in 43 states with 21 routes, including long distance, and the Northeast Corridor, which runs between Boston and Washington. Facts and Services, it owns 363 miles of the 457-mile Northeast Corridor, which runs between Boston and DC. Now, you're wondering, why 363 miles? Where's the other 100? It's between New York and New Haven, which is operated by Metro North. It's a contractual thing. Okay, so the operations are done by Metro North, but Amtrak runs their trains there. And then from New Haven up to Boston, it's under Amtrak's power then. So that's where the little discrepancy is. The Northeast Corridor is home to one of the busiest, most complex railroad systems in the world, with more than 2,000 train movements a year. Okay? Sorry. More than 2,000 trains on Amtrak control segments on a weekday basis. I don't know where I got that. But notable routes. The Northeast Corridor between Boston and DC gets 3.4 million riders a year. That's still climbing. The Keystone, which runs between New York and Harrisburg, that's running at 1.3 million riders a year and climbing. The Empire service between New York City, Penn Station to Albany, Buffalo, Niagara Falls, Toronto, Montreal, 1.4 million riders and climbing. So there's lots of good going on with Amtrak these days. Now you're wondering, what's with the track miles? Okay, you have the distance miles, but what's track miles? Every railroad has a right-of-way. You could have one track, you could have two tracks. Northeast Corridor in some areas have 4 tracks left from one side to another. 2 outbound, 2 on the inbound. And at some points you'll have 6 tracks. So add all that up, that gives you your 1,219 track miles from end to end. So that's a lot of train activity from one end to the other. What happened here? Okay, but why Amtrak? What's so great about it? You get your friendly onboard service as opposed to the airlines. I'm sure we've all been mistreated by the flight attendants. We've all sat in those cramped seats on a long flight from one city to another. You save money on gas. If you went to Washington, D.C. and you drove, it's a 6-hour drive, and you're spending a lot of money on fuel. And if you have to sit in traffic in cities like Philadelphia and Baltimore, which adds to the time, you're going to have to fill up again. So you're spending more money on gas than you are spending on the train. Okay, no additional fees as opposed to the airlines. If you were going to change your reservation, okay, you just pay a difference in the ticket. You don't pay a changing fee. There's no hidden fee that they're charging you. There's no convenience fee. All those fees that the airlines have to impose on you while you're closing your eyes. Top-notch city-to-city service. The conductors, I have had every opportunity to speak with them every single trip. They're the most friendly people in the industry, and they're always willing to say good morning to you. They're very personable, as opposed to the flight attendants, as we all know. Ample seating and leg room. There's plenty of it. Every single seat in your car has a footrest, okay? And if you're in business class, the seats are a little further ahead of you. So you get a little more leg room because you're paying a little bit more in each direction. The menus and food services, every single long-distance route has its own special menu. And even on the Northeast Corridor route, on the Northeast Regional, and the Acela, there's a general menu, and you can read it online. So you can see what your menu choices are before you get on board. Okay? So plenty of great characteristics, plenty of great attributes to look forward to.
No security ones.
Yeah, but also the Amtrak Police Department, they do a great job keeping the train station safe. And also the canines, they sniff down every piece of luggage that they think is suspicious.
And no radiation going through
The magnetometers.
whatever it is.
Yeah.
You have Wi-Fi accessibility and
There's free Wi-Fi in every train.
outlets. I noticed that delivered.
Yes, all trains have free Wi-Fi. So that's another great thing. Other great known routes, you have the Lakeshore Limited between New York City and Chicago. All right, you also have the Cardinal, which runs between New York and Chicago via Washington, D.C. Train goes down towards D.C., changes engines, and then heads up north towards Chicago. But the Lakeshore Limited is one of the most sought-after routes because it's a beautiful route going up the Hudson River if you're going out of New York Penn. And if you're going out of Boston, that's the second route. And those two halves of the train, they merge at Albany Rensselaer before continuing on to Chicago. Then you have the Silver Star and Silver Meteor, New York City to Miami. The Crescent from New York to New Orleans. The Southwest Chief, that's Chicago to Los Angeles. The Broadway Limited used to operate New York to Chicago, but that was canceled back in '95, and then was brought back under a new name called the Three Rivers, and then that was shortly canceled. But I hope that they bring that back soon, because that's a beautiful route going out towards Harrisburg and Pittsburgh. The California Zephyr goes from Chicago to Emeryville, which is in the San Francisco area, but you don't have to get off in Emeryville. You can actually just get off in Oakland, because that way you have instant access to the BART subway to take you across the bay to downtown San Francisco. The Empire Builder from Chicago to Seattle, and the Sunset Limited from Los Angeles to New Orleans. there's been talk that they want to extend that route back to Miami. Back in 1993, the Sunset Limited derailed on Big Bayou Canot, and that barge hit the bridge and knocked it out. 47 people got killed when that train derailed. So they want to bring that service back all the way to Miami. They want to bring that full route back to service. But the endless sights and the endless excitement, okay, that's what Amtrak's all about, as opposed to flying. When you're up in the air, you're just looking at clouds. You're missing out on so much. But when you're on the ground, you're going past all the scenery. That makes getting from one point to another half the fun. Okay. But Amtrak does provide a quicker, you okay, sir? You all right? Okay. A quicker alternative from New York to Washington. Going from Washington, D.C. to New York City and vice versa is 3 hours on the regional service. By Acela, 2 hours and 45 minutes. Sometimes 3.5 by regional service, depending on the amount of stops. A small alternative to Richmond and points beyond. If you're going to Richmond or to Williamsburg or Newport News, train rides about 7 hours versus 8-9 hours by car. So it saves you great time. Faster travel time between New York and Providence and Boston. Back in the early days, going back 20 plus years ago, the trains used to change engines in New Haven when going up towards Providence and Boston and back. And that would take 20 minutes into the schedule. And I dealt with that when I was in college. I went to college in Rhode Island, so I had to put up with that time and again. So now with the Acela and with the trains being electrified the entire way up and back, now you can go up to Boston South Station in just 5 hours, or a little underneath that if you're on the Acela. The seating choices, you have a coach class and business. Business class, it's approximately $30 in each direction per passenger, and you're given a newspaper, you're given one free non-alcoholic beverage for your trip. So you're treated as if you're golden right there. Electronic ticketing. This is my favorite part. Instead of getting those traditional tickets with the perforated end that you see at the airlines giving you, Amtrak uses those too, but you have electronic ticketing, you get this via email, all right? Comes with a QR code in the top left. The crew member scans this, all right? So when you get this via email, you download this off your email. Your outbound train, for instance, an example, this is my train going up to Kingston, Rhode Island. Okay, train 170 from Newark to Kingston. That's the outbound train on top. My return train 175 is right here on the bottom. And do not misplace this. Okay, use this for both directions. That way you don't need two separate tickets, one for going up and one coming back. That makes the e-ticket that much more user-friendly. Mobile app for the iPhone, Android, and the Windows Phone. The app allows you to check train schedules. You can check all the other features about your traveling day, including making schedule changes. Okay? So you can even check train status from your phone, just like you would do on the web, on Amtrak.com. So it's that much more convenient. This picture right here, that is the Pennsylvanian circling Horseshoe Curve in Altoona, Pennsylvania, as if you're going out towards Pittsburgh. It's a beautiful route, not to be missed.
On the seating choices, you didn't mention the sleeper car.
The sleeper cars, I'll get to the sleeper cars later. So the sky is the limit when it comes to onboard service and your seating choices and all your amenities. Okay, but the best part is you should know before you go. All the important information comes before you get to that train station. All trains on Amtrak are now reserved these days. You can call 1-800-USA-RAIL, which is 872-7245, all right? Or go on Amtrak's website, you can do your reservation right there. Their ticketing, you can do your e-ticket, or you can go to the ticket window, or you can even obtain your tickets through the Quick Track kiosks, which are those self-check-in kiosks in the station. Every major terminal has them. So what you do is when you want to pick up your tickets, you use the credit card that you purchase your tickets with, and that acts as your identity, and it reads your credit card information and it spits out your tickets, but make sure you sign them. That way the crew member knows that's you. Okay? So those quick track ticket kiosks, they work wonders. That way you're not have to wait for your tickets in the mail if you wanted to. Baggage policy. This is a good one. Amtrak is much more lenient when it comes to luggage as opposed to the airlines. You're allowed up to 4 checked bags per person. The first 2 are free. The next 2 are $20 a piece. But if you really think about it, imagine if you're a family of 4. 2 free bags per person. So that's 8 pieces of luggage free. So you can pack away. All right? No need to worry about paying extra for your luggage. But you're allowed up to 2 carry-ons per person, as opposed to 1 on the airlines. All right? So, but the most important thing I want you to remember regarding your check-in and your checked luggage, neither piece of carry-on or checked luggage is to exceed a weight of 50 pounds. All right? For your safety as well as the crew. So, but the most important part is all baggage must have identification attached. In these days prior, I should say post 9/11, with the transportation industry being on high alert, all baggage must have identification attached. We're good so far? Excellent. And that is a picture of a regional train crossing the Susquehanna River in between Perryville, Maryland, and Havre de Grace, Maryland. It's a beautiful crossing. It's my favorite bridge. Speaking of baggage, Amtrak has brand new baggage cars on the rails. These are their Viewliner style baggage cars. They replaced the older ones that they used to have. These are bike friendly. So if you're checking in a bike, which costs $50 to check in, your bikes can be securely loaded onto these baggage cars. They have racks inside, and they can be safely hung up, and that way they don't get bent or damaged during the trip. And they also handle mail as well as cargo. Also, they have brand new diner cars, brand new lounge cars that Amtrak has just built at one of their railroad car facilities up in Plattsburgh, New York by CAF USA. They built 130 new coaches of this type. So the long distance routes are gaining popularity. That's why they're building all those new cars for the fleet. And these are used on 15 routes nationwide. I think you're all looking forward to getting a discount, right? Amtrak has plenty of discounts available for all walks of life. Especially if you have children, ages 2 to 12, ride at half price. If you have children under 2, they ride free. Senior citizens, 15% off. AAA members get 10%. Military, active military, get 10% off. If you're a college student, you get 15% off. Veterans get 15% off. If you're in a group, this is a good one. If you're running a group trip For every 20 passengers that you book, you get a discount. Okay? All right, so for every 20 paying passengers you book, you get a discount. And if you're a National Association of Rail Passengers member, there's also a discount of 10%. So you get the very most and you pay less. So Amtrak's making it very user-friendly to use the rails wherever you're going.
What does anybody pay regular price?
They do. They do, if you're not in any one of those. Good question, though.
At what age does senior start?
62.
Okay, can you get AAA and senior? Or you get
One or the other. One or the other. Okay, now the fun part starts. Now comes your traveling day. If you are traveling on the Acela or on the regional service, okay, arrive at the station 30 minutes prior to your train departure, okay? If you're on a long distance route, like on the Silver Star, Silver Meteor, Lakeshore Limited, Southwest Chief, or even on the Carolinian if you're going towards Charlotte, all right, you want to be at the station 1 hour prior to, because if you have luggage, you may have to wait. So it's unlike the airlines where you have to be there 2 hours prior to departure. Okay, 1 hour is for Amtrak on the long distance. Okay, proceed to the proper location when you get to the platform. Every train is arranged in a different way. If you're on the regional service, if you're taking business class, that's the last car of the train. If you are in the quiet car, which there's no cost, I'll talk to you about the quiet car in a second. The quiet car is the second last car of the train. Business car, that fluctuates from one train from one route to another. But the quiet car, I'm going to tell you something very important. The quiet car, if you wish to sit in the quiet car, there's no additional cost for it. But keep your voice down.
no cell phone?
2, keep your conversation short, and no cell phone use, but you can use it, but it must be silent or on vibrate. Any other electronic devices, make sure you have headphones on. It's for consideration of all other passengers on board. All right? And have your tickets in hand with photo ID. In these days, post 9/11, photo identification is a must at all times. So it's up to the crew member if they want to check your ID. Make sure you have a passport if you are going towards Montreal or Toronto, or if you are going long distance, a passport's good to carry. At all other times, have a driver's license, okay? Have that handy. And give yourself wiggle room, okay? If you are going to be driving to Newark Penn or New York City Penn or any major station, give yourself plenty of time to get there. I'm going to let you in on a little secret, though. Amtrak has a website available, and it's called parking.amtrak.com. And there they have a list of select stations where you have parking facilities available close proximity to these stations that as long as you are an Amtrak passenger, you get half off on your parking.
Wow.
Yeah. So the Newark Penn Station Hilton, right across from Newark Penn Station Hilton, from the Newark Penn Station Terminal, as long as you're an Amtrak passenger, you can get half off on your parking there. So when you go on that website, you make your appointment and you tell them when you are going to be arriving, what exact time you may be arriving, give them an approximate time, and they will save a spot for you. Yeah, first class service right there. Okay? And same thing with New York Penn Station. There's a parking facility nearest to Penn Station and all other major Amtrak terminals nationwide. So there are parking facilities for every major terminal around the country. So give yourself plenty of wiggle room. If you're using mass transit, give yourself much time, okay? The 2 stations closest to here for New Jersey Transit, if you want to use mass transit there, You can go to Newbridge Landing in Hackensack or use the River Edge station. And you can take the Pascack Valley line, and that takes you to Secaucus Junction. You're going to pull in on the bottom level. You're going to take the escalator up to the main concourse up above, and then you switch trains over to the Northeast Corridor route. Penn Station is 10 minutes in one direction. Newark Penn is 10 minutes in the opposite. So it's about a half an hour ride from here. No problem, right? Exactly. So mass transit or even driving, give yourself ample time, but make sure you're there half an hour prior to your train's departure. If it gets you there more than half an hour, you're in great shape. Onboard amenities. This is your part, sir. Okay? Northeast Regional and the Empire Service, the Maple Leaf, Carolinian, the coach and business class. Okay? That's on one route. You also have the Acela Express. They have business and first class. First class on the Acela, you get a menu with hot items. Okay, so little high class right there. So if you want to be treated like a king, take the Acela. It's a great experience. Business and first class passengers get a complimentary newspaper and a non-alcoholic drink from the cafe car. So make sure you have your ticket with you. That way it says business class on it, and the cafe car attendant can take care of you right there. On the long distance trains, you have a variety of amenities such as roomettes. You have bedroom suites, family suites, and handicap accessible. So whatever accommodation you need, Amtrak has that available. But these amenities vary by train, because the Viewliner cars are one type of car. They have differently laid out rooms. The Superliner cars, which are the double-deckers, the bi-level cars, which are used on most of the long-distance routes, including the Capital Limited from Chicago to Washington, and even on the auto train from Wharton, Virginia, down to Sanford, Florida. Okay, so these amenity styles, they vary by route. And be considerate to your fellow passengers on all routes, not just the long distance. All right, if you have children with you, please make sure that they are considerate and they are well behaved the entire way. Yes, please, yes.
I was surprised they had a great menu. They served breakfast, lunch,
Yes,
and dinner.
I'm getting to the dining in a moment. So please be considerate to all fellow passengers. In this picture right here, those are the new seats in the Amfleet 1 coaches on the Northeast Regional. No more upholstered fabric. Hello, leather. Oh, they felt great. They were wonderful. You sleep like a baby on these things. All right. Did you say dining? There you go. Amtrak has brought back quality service in their dining cars.
I'm a witness.
Good, here we go. That's real French toast, sir. Okay? And that's real steak right there, okay? I wish I could create the aroma coming from
The
this.
only thing you pay extra for is the schnapps.
Exactly. But everything else is included.
Included, right?
But the best part is, if you purchase a sleeping car accommodation, your dining is included in your fare. Okay? So if you just purchase a coach class ticket, you're paying extra for the dining. So purchase a sleeping car accommodation, whatever type, and your dining is included.
If you go on the autumn train,
Same thing.
it's included.
Same thing.
Dining is
I like the fact you have your private bathroom
Exactly. They're even better.
right in the same room. Same
Right.
room. I like that.
Yes, all the
Towels and washcloths and a sink.
they're well built. They're first class type.
I enjoyed it.
But a couple of things Amtrak wants you to be aware of. If you need any special dietary needs, if you're diabetic or if you're vegan or whatever dietary needs,
kosher on the auto train. Has
Okay, in that situation, in these situations, call 72 hours prior, okay? That way your food can be properly prepared, okay? Especially diabetic, or even if you're vegan or vegetarian, all those special meals that you may need, call Amtrak 72 hours prior, call the phone number, and they will make that notation in your reservation, all right? However, if you have food allergies, folks, Amtrak does not guarantee a reaction-free journey, though. But for your own convenience, bring additional nourishment, because in case of any delay, the cafe car or even the lounge car may run short on supplies. So bring additional nourishment to hold yourself over.
Also, if you don't feel like going to the dining car, the car attendant will bring it to you.
I've heard of it, yes.
And also there's a snack car.
Yes, the cafe car. The cafe car is on most routes. The lounge car is on the long distance routes. They put both on the long distance routes. All right, so special menus, you can look at all those menus on Amtrak's website before you make your reservations, and you're falling in love with it 1, 2, 3. So you can see exactly what exact menu choices they make for every single route. So nothing could be finer.
Oh, they give you newspaper?
Yes,
Free water.
right.
He's a representative. He's not a plant.
I could have saved my ticket stub.
I thought I skipped a slide. Okay, moving on to some good things. Amtrak's got its vacations portion on its website, Amtrak Vacations. These are all-inclusive packages and deals, a combination of railroad travel and various tourist destinations that are in relation or close proximity to a major Amtrak city, okay? So they're one-of-a-kind experiences. And some of the top-rated packages that passengers purchase are the Glacier National Park, New York, and even the Grand Canyon if you're going to Phoenix, okay? Additional getaway deals are Washington, D.C., Chicago, New Orleans, okay? Even the national parks such as Yosemite and Yellowstone, all right? Now, what do you do if you want to purchase any one of these? Go to Amtrak's website, okay? And you can go and click on where it says Amtrak Vacations, and it's a separate link that takes you right there automatically, and you can make your reservation right there and then. And whichever rail vacation is of interest to you, just click and you're all set to go. All right? So, as I said, Amtrak is making traveling so much more exciting and much more convenient for everybody.
For somebody who might not understand the reason, I know the reason. Could you explain why the train is a layover in Washington, D.C. on long distance?
Because you have to change engines. You have to change engines because the tracks are not electrified from that point on to other points south.
After that diesel.
Right. So you have to change engine from electric to diesel. The power in the train goes out for approximately 20 minutes. And while you're there, do not wander far from the train. The train will leave on time.
I got out just to watch it, but I wasn't too far from the car.
Glad you did.
And you feel a slight bump when they connect, when they back.
Yeah, I love watching that part.
Yeah,
I take pictures all the time.
Yeah.
It's fun. When you're a railroader, you have to do that. I'm supposed to be lecturing in Silver Spring, Maryland in November, so I'm looking forward to it. Okay, moving on. This is my favorite part, Amtrak's Guest Rewards. This is one of the finest passenger loyalty programs in the travel industry. Unlike your airline frequent flyer programs that all the airlines have, but there are a lot of hidden ands, ifs, and buts, Amtrak makes it very simple, okay? But a couple of good things about it. You earn points when you ride the rails from one city to another, no matter how far you're going. You earn points on any purchases if you get the Amtrak Guest Awards credit card, either the Platinum or the World card. I'll tell you a little more about those in a second. And you redeem points for free Amtrak tickets. I do that all the time, and I think it'll be great for all of you to do that instead of spending all the money time and again. By redeeming points, it's making all these purchases with the credit card, and by traveling often, you earn all those points, and you're basically you're rewarding yourself. You're prepaying your fare too. But what was that?
It's a credit card.
Yes.
But you get bonus.
Right. And when you enroll in this program, you earn 500 bonus points, okay, once you take your first trip, okay? Once you travel within 90 days after enrolling, you get those 500 bonus points. Then, if you get the credit card, all right, the Platinum card, you get 12,000 points instantly when after spending $1,000 within 90 days of activation. And then, if you get the World card, which is the metallic blue one on the far right, they just sweetened the deal. Now you get 30,000 bonus points if you spend $1,000 in 90 days after activating. Well, the platinum card, there is no yearly fee. There's no annual fee. The World card has a $79 annual fee. So the choice is yours, folks. Okay? So choice is up to you. However, it's best to carry your Guest Rewards membership card all the time, at all times. I'm sure if you have a frequent flyer card for your airlines, you should have one for Amtrak too. And just like every airline, you get a frequent flyer number that's assigned to you. For Amtrak, I've already committed mine to memory. So I really don't even look at this really. So memorize that number, and when you make your reservation, make sure you give that number to the agent, and that way you get your points for every trip. And then if you're using the Amtrak Guest Rewards MasterCard to purchase your tickets, bingo, extra points. So it's yes. You get maximum points for the long distance routes too, because every route has X amount of points value. So that's the best part. So if you use your Guest Rewards number and also use the credit card, you're giving yourself maximum reward points each and every time you travel. All right. What's new and due to arrive? This is a good one. Bridge replacements. Amtrak has replaced many bridges along the Northeast Corridor, including the Niantic River Bridge in East Lyme, Connecticut, up on the route going up towards Boston. They've replaced the Thames River Bridge in New London. That used to be a bascule bridge, but it was over 90 years old and it had to come out. So they replaced it back in the year 2010. And it's now a high-powered lift. So the center span goes up and down. That way the ships can move in and out, no problem. Another bridge that they've also replaced was the Pequannock Crossing in Bridgeport. That was another old crossing at the time of the New Haven Railroad in those early days. But the one bridge that Amtrak wants to replace, and they just broke ground, is this bridge right here between Secaucus and Kearney. That's Portal Bridge. Exactly. That bridge is 108 years old. But it works great, but it's a concern now because it's already been stuck in the open position one time. Every time when it closes, they have a problem locking it. I've been on the train before, and the train would have to wait until the crew would have to manually lock the bridge. And I was coming home from Rhode Island from my college reunion, and I texted my family, waiting for Portal Bridge to close. My family texted me back and they said, "You and your bridges." That I was, I'm like, it was a deja vu because going up, my train got canceled because another bridge in Connecticut was also stuck. So bridge replacements is a very important topic on Amtrak's to-do list. DC Union Station, they want to expand and renovate their boarding area. Back in 1988, Union Station was restored to its full glory. It was a near disaster of a building. It was a near public embarrassment, and they beautifully restored it. And the waiting area now is 30 years old, and now you have 30 million passengers going through there, as opposed to the 15 million that they projected when they first opened it. So double the amount of passengers, and you have long lines waiting to get onto the trains, and it's cutting into the walking corridors. People trying to go to Starbucks coffee, and they have to play around with the lines. That's been on their to-do list. But also in December of 2014, Amtrak changed part of the route for the Vermonter. The train used to change engines in New Haven, it still does, but the old route was it would do a switchback in Palmer, Massachusetts, east of Springfield. It would put one engine at the head and another engine at the back, pushing. So when they would get to the switchback, the train would switch directions and go up the branch up towards White River Junction, Montpelier, and St. Albans. Not anymore. Now they just put one engine at the head, and the train takes a different route up through Northampton, Massachusetts, and Chicopee, and stopping in Greenfield before crossing the border into Vermont, taking almost an entire hour out of the route. So making the trip that much shorter. Also, the new New York Penn Station, which is long overdue for opening. I take the train into New York City when I work with the cruise lines, and New York Penn Station is a rat maze. It is a rat maze. But if you know how to navigate the current one, you're in good shape. But if you're traveling into New York City for the first time, it's not your favorite station. But they are opening the new station in the post office across 8th Avenue. It's going to be in the old post office. It's going to be called the Moynihan Train Hall. Okay, that's the main wing area for Long Island Railroad, Amtrak, and Jersey Transit. They're going to move out of that dungeon out from underneath Madison Square Garden very soon. Part of the station's already done, but the main train hall is yet to be complete. So hopefully in the coming year that'll be done.
Are they going to have the skylight like they have?
Yes, yes. It's modeled after the old terminal. So it's going to be really beautiful. But the big one here is the installation of PTC, or Positive Train Control. This is a safety instrument that is supposed to, and it's going to, and it's so far doing a great job thus far, successful, of preventing railroad accidents, especially human error. That's the big cause for railroad accidents, is human error. All right? If you'll remember Amtrak train number 188 that crashed in Philadelphia, okay, the engineer was doing 106 miles an hour, and what really caused that was the engineer heard on his radio that there was a gang of kids throwing rocks at a SEPTA train coming in the opposite direction. But in reaction, he wanted to push the throttle forward so that way he can get the train out of harm's way. But he lost all sense of situational awareness. He forgot that he was not at the curb that he thought he was at. He was at this one curb in North Philadelphia, not at Frankfurt, not at another curb that allows a higher speed. So he went too fast for this one curb that required a lower speed. So as he rounded that curve, the train got ejected right off the rails, and 8 people were killed. But PTC is supposed to prevent human error such as that. But how does PTC work? Okay, 4 components. Global position satellite, or GPS, okay, that tracks the train's movements 24/7, okay? Secondly, you have a real-time display in the cab. Right here's the engineer. The PTC display is that screen directly right ahead of him, all right? And then this little screen right behind his shoulder is the front and rear view facing camera. That way he can see real-time images of the track ahead of him. And also he can see the track behind him. So he can change view. If he wants to see what's going on behind him, he can hit the switch and see what's happening behind him. So if he's backing the train up, he can see that. So this technology is life-saving. Okay? Thirdly, the other portion at PTC involves is roadside apparatus. Okay? There are sensors built into the tracks every few miles. Okay? Railroad tracks, every major rail line is broken up into zones, into blocks. If you're in the interlocking tower where the tracks are controlled. All right, so as the trains go through each of those blocks, through each of those zones, the train is tracked by those devices. And that relays the information back to the dispatcher. Now, the dispatcher's most important part. That's the 4th part. And the dispatcher has to keep his or her eyes on all train activity all day long. And if he or she sees any train that is going too fast for any area of a track, whether it's a bridge, a tunnel, a crossover, okay? A crossover is where trains move from one track to another, okay? There's a speed limit for that too. If any train is going too fast in any of these instances, the dispatcher can automatically home in on the train, like a remote control, and slow it down without the engineer doing it. And if the engineer has not responded yet, the dispatcher can do it him or herself, or even stop the train completely without the conductor trying to get the engineer's attention. Because safety is a big thing on the rails these days. So that's what PTC is all about. It saves lives on the rails. But recently, Amtrak has bid farewell to its king of the rails, the AEM-7 electric engine. I have a model of it right here. I have 4 of these at home. All right? They were built in the 1980s to replace the famous Pennsylvania Railroad GG1, okay, which ran on the rails for 53 years. This engine ran 37 years. But it was known for high speed. It developed 7,000 horsepower, and it could pull the Metroliner trains as it did back in the 80s and 90s, which was a huge plus for the business travelers. And the Metroliners traveled at 125 miles an hour between Washington and New York City. Okay? And then engine 915 is one of the engines on display at the Railroad Museum of Pennsylvania in Strasburg. Okay? Also, one of the other engines that Amtrak has retired is the E60 electric engine. And one of their engines is on display in Strasburg as well. But the AM7 had 2 nicknames, Meatball and Toaster. Well, doesn't it look like a toaster, like one of those fancy toasters that you have at home? Doesn't it? Yeah. Meatball comes from the Swedish design, because it was based on a Swedish design in Europe that looked very similar to it. So they, inspired by that design, they built the American model, which is what I have here. So they call it Meatball. Okay? But that's not the only engine that Amtrak has replaced with the ACS-64 engine. This is the HHP-8. HHP means high horsepower. The 8 meaning 8,000 horsepower. Okay? Let me just put this down. All right. Built between 1999 and 2001 by Alstom and Bombardier. 8,000 horsepower engines. Okay? It was a cousin to the Acela Express. If you take the power units of the Acela train and just scrunch them into one, you have your HHP-8. Okay? And that's a picture of a train that the HHP is pulling right through Secaucus there. Only 15 were built by Amtrak. 15 were operated by them, actually. But they were retired because of their unreliability. One of those reasons was because the wheels, in bad weather, the wheels would slip. So when the engineer would put the throttle forward, if there was bad weather, the wheels would start slipping. But the ACS-64 engine does not have that problem. But she had two nicknames just like the AAM-7, Hippo and Rhino, because she's got that wide look to her. And her very last run, she was unceremoniously retired on November 7th of 2014. So she was a good engine. She ran plenty of miles, but the AM-7 logged more than 200 million miles on the rails in 37 years. This is the E60 locomotive that Amtrak has retired. It's rusting away a little bit on a display track in Strasbourg. There are no plans yet to restore it yet. So she pulled the long distance trains back in the 80s and 90s.
Are you allowed to go in it when you go to visit?
No, unfortunately not. But I had the pleasure of sitting in the cab of ACS-64 engine number 604 on National Train Day, and that is a beautiful cab. That's nice, with leather seating. Oh man, it's like the Taj Mahal.
On long distances, one engineer or two?
One, and eventually on a long distance route they may take two as relief, but usually it's one because there are no firemen on the Northeast Corridor because it's an electrically run line. But this is the new Portal Bridge that Amtrak wants to put in to replace on the Hackensack River. Oh, between Secaucus and Kearney. Okay, that's the bridge. That's the movable bridge that always gets stuck and it's been having problems. They want to replace it with a fixed span that's going to have 4 tracks. Okay, 2 in either direction. But one of those tracks is going to handle the Midtown Direct line for New Jersey Transit between New York City and Montclair, and as well as Dover, New Jersey. That way those trains do not have to switch back and forth, because that's what they have to do right now. But this new bridge is going to allow for a straight route for that line, and the Amtrak line will have no delays. And best of all, the boats do not have to wait. And there's only one boat that has to wait, and that's a human waste barge that docks in Jersey City. And it's the only boat traffic that has to wait to get through there. There used to be lots of boat traffic that used to go through the Hackensack River, but other than that barge, that's it. So time to get rid of the Portal Bridge and put a new span in. That way you don't get any more delays. Okay. All right, I want to say thank you so much for coming out. However, I have plenty of handouts here on the back table. I have a station guide, which I wish you to take a copy, Because if you're making your reservation online, just use the station codes you see listed, and that makes your search much easier. Also, I have an article about a new service that I'm introducing via my website. In relation to my travel lectures, I'm introducing travel parties in relation to destinations. So if you want to have a destination-themed party for whatever occasion, that's what I'm doing, okay? And also, if you'd like to see a listing of my other lectures, I have a list of my lectures on the back table as well. And I also, one more thing, I have a list of Amtrak Guest Awards perks, which I provided for you. So if you want to see what merchants are providing the maximum amount of points for your purchases, and whatever merchants are giving you maximum amount of reward points and discounts for being an Amtrak Guest Awards member, it's all there, okay? Oh, one other thing. Speaking of discounts, Amtrak Guest Awards. Has anyone seen the Broadway show, The Band's Visit? How is it? It's good? There's a discount. If you go to Amtrak Guest Awards is in conjunction with Audience Rewards, and you can earn 700 bonus points for every ticket purchase that you get for The Band's Visit. So if you want to see it again, go ahead. All right, it's a great show, I heard.
I know there's a congressional mandate for installation of PST. How far along is Amtrak?
It's all done.
It's all done?
PTC is all done on Northeast Corridor. It's the freight railroads and the commuter lines that are really under the gun now, because they want to get that fully installed by the end of this year. I'm starting to see Jersey Transit trains traveling with 2 engines at either end, because the control cars, they have to have PTC too, not just the engine. So they want to have PTC installed in all trains, commuter, freight, and passenger, and also steam engines if they could.
You mentioned the senior discount available, 15%. Does that discount also apply to when you buy a roomette?
It should, yes. It should. It's all part of it.
On the long distance trips, like New Orleans, Florida, New York, let's say, it's only one engineer. How many hours does he go before
They take an extra engineer as a relief.
Yeah, but how many hours or miles?
Approximately 5 hours at a time. Because the engineers, they know how long they can go without feeling fatigued. Because you don't want to have the engineer in that seat too long. So they send a crew of 2 engineers into the cab, and they actually take turns back and forth every few hours.
You gotta be in good physical shape. Those outdoor
And-
stations, you gotta climb straight up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And most importantly, you have to have good eyesight too. And you have the good situational awareness to be an engineer. The engineer's career is stressful enough these days with all the things that could happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Any other questions? Any other comments so far?
The electric trains, do they use overhead wires?
Yes, it's called the catenary system. And those wires pack 11,000 volts. That's enough juice to cook, enough juice you can cook a chicken in 5 minutes.
Doesn't that make them more vulnerable?
No, those wires are a good couple of feet above the trains, and if they were going to do any maintenance, they instruct the substations or the dispatchers to shut down the power before they even do any maintenance, because those wires are alive.
But what about loss of electricity, like say a hurricane?
Well, then what they do is they have backup power. Amtrak has a variety of substations along the line. So if one thing goes out, there's a backup. They have plenty of backup power everywhere.
Did I hear they're gonna have a celebration when one of the long-distance trains come on time?
It'll be great. They'll be imagining, but I just want to let you know, the long distance trains, when you're going anywhere freight trains take precedence, okay?
They're on the tracks.
They take precedence on any line that Amtrak does not run. The Northeast Corridor is Amtrak operated, okay? However, if you're going towards Richmond, Williamsburg, or Miami, you're going to be on CSX freight lines. Or if you're going out towards Pittsburgh, you're on Norfolk Southern. If your train has to wait for a freight train to pass, that train has no choice but to wait. That's the rule in the book.
The attendants are full of stories that they've experienced, and one of the ones that was sort of very interesting was, you mentioned how the trains leave on time, they don't wait for you.
Exactly.
Back on the train.
Yeah.
Well, he experienced the train was pulling out of the station, and he was the attendant was going between cars, and he noticed a human hand holding on while the train was in motion.
Oh boy.
The guys noticed he was late getting back and noticed the train taking off. He went to jump and he was going to hold on until the next stop. Well, he had to contact the engineer to stop the train. The guy get on the train.
I'm surprised he didn't get arrested.
I don't know if he did or not.
I'm surprised. But
And the bathroom.
you have to be on time when that train's leaving.
Yep.
Yes, one more.
I used to take the Amtrak Northeast Corridor
Uh-huh.
to Washington DC, and before I got there, they knew the lines were down, and they hoped to get it up. And they
Yeah.
took us to Philadelphia, and then told us to get off. I said, well,
Okay.
what do I do now?
Well, you just have to be very patient because those
They didn't get a
they
bus or
they
anything for you.
they do
Nothing.
they do have to. Unfortunately, they do have to make you wait, but eventually those power lines they do have backup. So you have to be very patient with
What
that.
happened, instead of being in about 2:30, 3 o'clock, I got in around 8. They tried to get rid of everybody. Old people, young people, running all over with their bags, up and down. And finally, I sat there with some other people and refused to get off until they shut the lights off. We went upstairs, and they got an old diesel in. You could walk fast.
Well, that's one of the alternatives that they use. They will put a diesel on and then they'll hold the train the rest of the way.
5 hours later, we sat
Yeah, but they threw her off the train and without any instructions. They
That's
chose on their own.
okay, folks. I'd like to wrap it up. If you have any other questions or comments, I'll be right here. I will stay behind for another 15 minutes. If you'd like to pick up any handouts, it's on the back. Okay? Just to let you know, October 15th, folks. Excuse me, folks, everybody. October 15th, 6:30, I'll be doing my Washington, D.C. presentation in Rochelle Park. So please be there if you wish, okay? Great to see you all. Thank you so much, everyone.